Dr. Hae-Jin Park was having a quiet night shift at the International Space Medical Station. She sat at her desk, looking through patient files while sipping her coffee. The space station's medical bay was usually peaceful during the night cycle, with only the soft beeping of machines breaking the silence. That peace ended when the emergency alert started flashing. Dr. Park to Emergency Bay 3. The computer announced. Unknown species arriving with critical injuries. Hae-Jin grabbed her medical kit and ran. As she entered the emergency bay, she stopped in surprise. Two massive creatures stood there, each over 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in dark scales, and they had powerful tails that moved slowly back and forth. They were drachnids, the most feared warrior species in the galaxy. Between them, they carried their wounded companion on a makeshift stretcher. The injured drachnid was bleeding from several deep wounds in his chest. "Please," said the larger drachnid. His voice was deep but clear. "Help him." Hae-Jin pushed aside her shock and fear. She was a doctor first. "Put him on the medical bed," she ordered, pointing to the examination table. The drachnids carefully placed their companion down. "What happened?" Hae-Jin asked as she began scanning the patient. "Training accident. Combat practice with plasma weapons," the drachnid explained. "The safety systems failed." Hae-Jin nodded, focusing on her work. The scanner showed 3 deep burns that had cut through the patient's scales and into the soft tissue beneath. But surprisingly, the drachnid's internal structure was similar to human anatomy in many ways. "I can help him," she said firmly, "but I need to operate now." The two standing drachnids looked at each other. Everyone knew their species never showed weakness, never sought help from others. Yet here they were. "Do it," the leader said. Hae-Jin called her medical team. To their credit, when nurses and assistants arrived, they showed no fear. They worked quickly and professionally, even though they had never treated a drachnid before. The operation took 3 hours. Hae-Jin used regenerative tissue patches to repair the damaged areas. She carefully worked around the tough scales, using techniques she had developed for other alien species. The patient's vital signs remained stable throughout the surgery. When she finished, Hae-Jin went to speak with the waiting drachnids. They stood exactly where she had left them, like statues. "Your friend will recover," she told them. "The wounds are healed, but he needs rest for at least 3 days." The drachnids surprised her by bowing their heads. "We have watched your medical station," the leader said. "We saw how you treat all species with care. Our own healers." He paused. "They would have replaced the damaged parts with machinery. We do not want that." Hae-Jin understood. The drachnids were famous for using cybernetic enhancements, but these warriors wanted to keep their natural bodies. "Your friend can stay here while he recovers," she said. "We'll make sure he's comfortable and safe." The leader nodded. "We will return for him." "And," he hesitated, "there are others who might need your help." After they left, Hae-Jin sat down heavily in her office chair. She had just treated a member of the most dangerous species in known space. More importantly, they trusted her enough to come back. She opened a new patient file and began typing. This was just the beginning of something much bigger than a single emergency surgery. Somehow, she knew this night would change everything. Looking at her empty coffee cup, Hae-Jin smiled. "Well," she said to herself, "I guess night shifts just got more interesting." Medical Director Kim Ta-won sat at his desk, reading Dr. Park's report for the 3rd time. 3 more drachnid warriors had arrived at the station overnight, each seeking treatment for various injuries. The situation was becoming more complex with each passing day. He looked up as Hae-Jin entered his office. "You look tired," he said. "I just finished treating a drachnid with a fractured bone plate," she replied, taking the seat. "Their scales make it difficult to access the injury, but we're learning more about their anatomy with each case." Ta-won nodded slowly. "The hospital board is concerned. They think having warriors from the galaxy's most powerful military force on our station is dangerous." "They're patients," Hae-Jin said firmly. They come here for help, not to fight. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. Another Drachnid ship had just requested permission to dock. This time, they were bringing 4 injured warriors. "I'll handle this," He-Jin said, standing up. But Taiwan raised his hand. "Wait, I'm coming with you. I need to see this for myself." They'd walked together to the docking bay. When the Drachnid ship arrived, it was larger than the previous vessels. 8 warriors emerged, carrying their injured companions with great care. The leader of the group, his scales a deep bronze color, approached them. "I am Squad Commander Krell. We heard of your success in treating our kind." Taiwan stepped forward. "I am Medical Director Kim. May I ask why you choose our facility over your own medical centers?" Krell's expression changed slightly. "Our medical facilities." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "They believe any damaged part should be replaced with something stronger, something mechanical. But we are warriors. Our bodies are our honor. We do not wish to become machines." He-Jin and her team began examining the injured Drachnids. One had severe burns, another had internal injuries, and 2 had combat-related wounds that needed attention. As they worked, Taiwan observed something remarkable. These fierce warriors, known throughout the galaxy for their fighting prowess, showed complete trust in the human medical staff. They followed instructions without question and remained perfectly still during treatments. Hours later, when all 4 patients were stable and resting, Krell approached Taiwan again. "Your healers have great skill," he said. "They fix without replacing. They heal without changing who we are." He straightened to his full height. "We wish to establish a formal arrangement. Our warriors will come here for treatment when needed." Taiwan considered the request carefully. "This would need to be discussed with our board and proper authorities. It would mean significant changes to our operations." "Change is already happening," Krell replied. "Word spreads among our kind. Your station offers something we have long needed, but could not find among our own people." Later that evening, Taiwan called an emergency board meeting. As the members argued about security concerns and potential risks, he thought about what he had witnessed. "The most feared species in the galaxy," he said finally, silencing the debate, "trusts us to heal them. They come to us not as warriors, but as patients seeking help. This is not a security risk. This is an opportunity to build peace through medicine." The board members fell quiet, considering his words. "Dr. Park," Taiwan continued, "will oversee the development of a dedicated treatment protocol for Drachnid patients. We will need to expand our facilities and train more staff." As the meeting ended, He-Jin stayed behind. "Thank you for supporting this," she said. Taiwan smiled. "Sometimes the greatest victories come not through fighting, but through healing. The Drachnids are teaching us this, even as we teach them." Dr. Lee Ji-Hoo stood in the observation room, watching a Drachnid patient through the window. As a first-year resident, she had been assigned to study their biology and medical needs. What started as a routine research project had led her to an unexpected discovery. Ji-Hoo checked her notes again. Over the past month, she had treated 15 Drachnid warriors. Each one had refused cybernetic replacements from their own medical facilities, even when such treatments would have been faster. There had to be a reason. The answer came during her evening rounds. Her patient, a younger Drachnid warrior named Vex, was examining the healing wound on his arm with great interest. "Is something wrong?" Ji-Hoo asked, entering the room. Vex looked up. "No, I am pleased. The wound heals naturally. There is no metal, no artificial parts." He touched the healing scales gently. "This is how it should be." Ji-Hoo sat down beside the bed. "Can you tell me about Drachnid medical treatment? It would help us provide better care." Vex was quiet for a moment. "Our society values strength above all. Long ago, our healers decided that damaged parts should be replaced with something stronger. Each injury became an opportunity for enhancement." His voice grew softer. "But some of us remember the old ways. We believe our natural forms are sacred. "Is that why you come to us?" Jihu asked. "Yes, your human medicine." Vex paused, searching for words. "It respects what we are. You heal without changing our essence." Jihu spent that night reviewing all her patient records. A pattern emerged. The Drachnids who came to the station weren't just avoiding cybernetic enhancement. They were part of a growing movement within their society that valued natural healing. The next morning, she presented her findings to Dr. Park and Director Kim. "Their entire medical system is built around cybernetic enhancement," she explained. "Even minor injuries are seen as opportunities to replace organic tissue with synthetic parts. But many warriors don't want this." Hejin nodded slowly. "That explains their gratitude for simple treatments. We're not just healing their wounds, we're helping them preserve their identity." "There's more," Jihu continued. "I found references to ancient Drachnid healing practices. They once had a sophisticated understanding of natural medicine. But that knowledge was lost when they embraced cybernetic enhancement." Director Kim leaned forward. "This could be significant. We're not just providing medical care, we're helping them reconnect with their own history." Jihu shared her ideas for new treatment protocols. By combining human medical techniques with what they were learning about Drachnid biology, they could develop better ways to heal without using synthetic parts. As she finished her presentation, an emergency alert sounded. A new group of Drachnid patients had arrived. "Go," Director Kim said to Jihu. "Use what you've learned. Show them there's another way." In the emergency bay, Jihu met her new patient, a Drachnid warrior with a serious leg injury. She explained each step of the treatment clearly, promising that no artificial parts would be used. The warrior's tense posture relaxed. "You understand," he said simply. "Yes," Jihu replied, preparing her medical tools. "We understand that true strength isn't about replacing who you are. It's about healing and becoming whole again." As she worked, Jihu realized that this was more than just medical treatment. It was a bridge between two very different cultures, built on trust and understanding. The Drachnids were teaching them as much as they were learning, showing that even the fiercest warriors valued their natural selves above artificial perfection. The emergency alarms woke Dr. Hejin Park at 3 in the morning. She rushed to the medical bay, still pulling on her white coat. The sight that greeted her made her stop in her tracks. A massive Drachnid battleship had docked at the station. Its size was 3 times larger than any vessel they had seen before. Through the viewing window, Hejin could see the ship's markings. This was a command vessel. Director Kim met her at the entrance. "They're bringing in someone important," he said quietly. "A high commander." The docking bay doors opened. 10 Drachnid honor guards entered first, their scales gleaming in the bright lights. Behind them came Commander Rax, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Drachnid fleet. He carried an injured warrior in his arms. "This is my best fighter," Rax announced, his voice deep and powerful. "He was wounded saving my life. Your reputation has spread among our kind. Help him." Hejin approached the injured warrior. The damage was severe. Deep plasma burns had melted through his scales, and internal bleeding was visible. This would be their most challenging case yet. "We need to operate immediately," Hejin said. She looked directly at Commander Rax. "I must warn you, this will be a difficult surgery." Rax's eyes narrowed. "If he dies, it will create problems between our peoples." The threat was clear, but Hejin stood her ground. "I will do everything in my power to save him, but I need you to trust our methods." The commander studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Proceed." Hejin gathered her team. Dr. Lee Jihu joined her, bringing her new research on Drachnid biology. They worked together, using everything they had learned about healing Drachnid tissue. Hours passed. The surgery was delicate, requiring all of Hejin's skill. They had to repair damaged blood vessels, heal burned tissue, and carefully regrow the protective scales. Jihu's research proved invaluable, helping them understand how Drachnid bodies healed naturally. In the waiting area, Commander Rax stood motionless. His honor guard remained at attention, creating an intimidating presence in the normally quiet medical station. Finally, after 6 intense hours, Hejin emerged from surgery. She was tired but satisfied with their work. She approached the commander, aware that her next words could affect the future of human-drachnid relations. "The surgery was successful," she said. "Your warrior will recover fully. His natural healing abilities are remarkable. We simply helped his body repair itself." Commander Rax moved to see his injured warrior. The patient was resting peacefully, his wounds carefully treated and bandaged. No cybernetic parts had been used, only careful healing and regenerative medicine. "You truly understand," Rax said softly. "Our bodies are not machines to be replaced piece by piece. They are living things that can heal." He turned to Hejin. "I came here to judge if these reports of human healing were true, to see if we could trust you with our wounded." He straightened to his full height. "You have proven yourselves worthy of that trust." The commander's next words would change everything. "I will speak to the High Command. It is time we acknowledge this partnership openly. Our warriors deserve to heal with their honor intact." As Rax and his guards prepared to leave, he stopped at the door. "Dr. Park," he said, "you have shown us that there is strength in healing, not just in fighting. Perhaps we have much to learn from humans after all." The Jinn watched them go, knowing that this night marked a turning point. The most feared species in the galaxy had learned to trust, and in doing so, had begun to change. Dr. Song Miro walked through the medical station's new drachnid ward, making notes on her tablet. As the station's anthropologist, she had been studying the warriors' customs and traditions. What she discovered amazed her. Today, she was interviewing a drachnid elder named Kex, who had come to the station not for treatment, but to share knowledge. His scales were a pale silver, showing his great age. "In the old times," Kex explained, sitting carefully in the specially designed chair, "our healers were as respected as our warriors. They understood the body's natural strength." May Ray recorded his words carefully. What changed? Technology came. Fast healing through machines, replace instead of repair. Many thought this was progress. Kex touched his scales gently. "But some of us remembered the old ways. We kept the knowledge secret." As they talked, Mirai noticed other aliens watching from the observation area. News had spread about humans healing the mighty drachnids. Now, species from across the galaxy came to observe. In another room, a young drachnid warrior was teaching Dr. Park about their healing chants, songs that helped them focus their body's natural healing energy. Hejin had discovered that patients who performed these chants recovered faster. "The voice connects to the spirit," the warrior explained. "The spirit connects to the body. This is what our ancestors knew." May Ray moved to the recovery ward, where she saw something extraordinary. A drachnid warrior was showing the human nurse how to read their scale patterns. Each pattern told a story of the warrior's life and battles. "These marks show honor," the warrior said. "That is why we do not want artificial parts. They cannot tell our stories." Later that day, Mirai met with Director Kim to share her findings. She had collected hundreds of stories, songs, and healing traditions. "Their culture is far richer than anyone knew," she explained. "The drachnids weren't always focused only on war. They had deep knowledge of healing and natural medicine." "Can we use this knowledge?" Director Kim asked. "We already are," Mirai replied. "Dr. Park has started combining their traditional practices with our medical treatments. The results are remarkable." As if to prove her point, they heard singing from the recovery ward. A group of drachnid warriors was performing a healing chant for their wounded companion. The sound was deep and powerful, filling the station with its strange beauty. A nearby Andorian diplomat, watching in amazement, turned to Mirai. "We always thought the drachnids were simple warriors," he said. "How wrong we were." Mirai smiled. "Sometimes the fiercest exterior hides the deepest wisdom." That evening, she added a final note to her research. "The drachnids are teaching us as much as they are learning from us." Through healing, we have discovered not just their physical nature, but their spirit. What began as medical treatment has become a bridge between cultures. She looked out the station window at the stars. More ships were arriving. Not just drachnids now, but other species too. They all came to see how the most feared warriors in the galaxy had found a new kind of strength through healing. The medical station had become more than a hospital. It was becoming a place where old wisdom met new science, where healing brought understanding, and where the stories of scales could teach lessons about honor and trust. Nurse Choi Hyunwoo knew something was wrong when 3 large drachnid warships appeared without warning. These weren't the usual medical transport vessels. These ships carried the markings of the Drachnid High Command. He immediately contacted Director Kim, but before anyone could prepare, the ships had docked. A group of high-ranking Drachnid officials marched into the medical station, their armor gleaming. "This unauthorized medical treatment must end," announced the lead official, Supreme Commander Dax. "Our warriors should receive proper Drachnid medical care, with proper Drachnid enhancements." The medical station fell silent. In the recovery ward, several Drachnid patients watched with concern. One of them was a young warrior named Lex, whom Hyunwoo had been treating for the past week. Director Kim stepped forward. "Supreme Commander, we respect your authority. But these warriors came to us by choice." Choice. Dax's voice was cold. "Our warriors do not need choices. They need strength, power. Our medical technology gives them this." At that moment, alarms sounded through the station. A Drachnid training vessel had just arrived, carrying a critically injured young warrior. The warrior's chest had been crushed in a training accident. "Send them away," Dax ordered. "They will receive treatment at our facilities." But Hyunwoo had already seen the scanner readings. "There's no time," he said firmly. "His internal organs are failing. He needs help now." The young nurse moved quickly, his years of experience guiding his actions. He began emergency treatment, combining human medical techniques with the Drachnid healing chants he had learned. Supreme Commander Dax watched with growing interest as Hyunwoo worked. The nurse's hands moved with sure skill, while his voice chanted the ancient Drachnid words of healing. Other Drachnid patients joined in the chant, filling the medical bay with their deep voices. Hours passed. Finally, Hyunwoo stepped back. The young warrior was stable, his wounds healing naturally. No mechanical parts had been needed. "You know our healing songs," Dax said to Hyunwoo, surprise in his voice. "I learned them from my patients," Hyunwoo replied. "They are part of who you are. Just as your scales tell your stories, your songs help you heal." Lex, the recovering warrior, spoke up from his bed. "Supreme Commander, look at my wounds." He showed how his scales had healed naturally. "I am still strong, still Drachnid, but I am whole, not part machine." Director Kim saw an opportunity. "Supreme Commander, we don't wish to challenge Drachnid authority. We offer another option, one that honors your traditions while healing your warriors." Dax was quiet for a long time. He looked at the injured warriors, at their healing wounds, at the respect between patients and medical staff. Finally, he spoke. Perhaps there is wisdom in having choices." He straightened to his full height. "I will consult with the High Command. This situation requires careful consideration." As the Supreme Commander and his group prepared to leave, he turned to Hyunwoo. "You honor our ways while healing our warriors. This is unexpected." After they left, Hyunwoo returned to checking on his patients. He knew that today marked a crucial point in human-Drachnid relations. Sometimes, he thought, the greatest diplomatic victories came not through grand gestures, but through simple acts of healing and respect. Dr. Hae-jin Park stood in the new training center of the International Space Medical Station. The room was filled with both human medical students and young Drachnid warriors, all wearing white medical uniforms. This was the first official class of the Human Drachnid Medical Exchange Program. 3 months had passed since Supreme Commander Dax's visit. The High Command had finally given their approval, but with strict conditions. Every human doctor who treated drachnids had to learn their customs and healing traditions. In return, drachnid warriors would train as medical assistants. Today marks a new chapter in medical history. He-Jin said to the class, "We will learn from each other. Humans will teach modern medicine, and drachnids will share their ancient healing wisdom." In the front row, a young drachnid named Mex raised his hand. "Dr. Park, how can warriors be healers? These seem like opposite things." He-Jin smiled. "A warrior protects life. A healer saves life. They are not so different." The class began with basic anatomy. Human students learned about drachnid scale patterns and how they affected healing. Drachnid students studied human medical tools and techniques. Both groups practiced together, learning to work as teams. In another part of the station, Dr. Lee Ji-Hoo was working with Elder Kext to document traditional drachnid medicines. They had discovered that certain healing songs actually created vibrations that helped bones and scales grow stronger. "Our ancestors knew these things," Keck said, watching Ji-Hoo record the frequencies. "Now we remember them again." The station had grown larger to handle all the new activities. New wings were built specifically for drachnid patients, with special beds that could support their size and weight. The healing halls echoed with a mix of medical machinery sounds and traditional drachnid healing chants. One day, during a practical training session, an emergency arrived. A drachnid ship had been damaged in an asteroid field, leaving several warriors injured. The new medical teams rushed to help. He-Jin watched with pride as human and drachnid medical staff worked together perfectly. Human doctors used their advanced tools while drachnid healers led the healing chants. The injured warriors recovered faster than ever before. "This is the future," Director Kim said, standing beside her. "Not just for drachnids and humans, but for all species." He was right. Other alien races had started sending observers to the station. They wanted to learn how the fierce drachnid warriors had become partners in healing. At the end of the first training month, He-Jin organized a graduation ceremony. The human students had learned to read scale patterns and perform healing chants. The drachnid students had mastered modern medical equipment and gentle healing techniques. "You are the first," she told them. "The first of many who will bring together the best of both our peoples. You proved that strength can be found not just in fighting, but in healing." As she watched the mixed group of graduates, He-Jin remembered that first night when 3 scared drachnid warriors brought their injured friend to her. That one act of trust had started everything. Now, the most feared species in the galaxy was learning to heal. Their warriors were discovering that true strength could mean helping others grow strong again. It was a legacy that would change both their peoples forever. 5 years had passed since the first drachnid warriors came to the International Space Medical Station. Dr. He-Jin Park stood at the observation window of the greatly expanded facility, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. The station had grown to 10 times its original size. Today was special. The station was celebrating its 1,000th successful graduate from the Human Drachnid Medical Exchange Program. More importantly, the Drachnid High Command had announced a historic decision. All their medical facilities would now offer both traditional healing and modern medicine. He-Jin remembered the early days, when treating a single drachnid was considered dangerous. Now, drachnid medical ships patrolled space lanes, protecting hospital vessels, and offering aid to any species in need. "Still watching the stars, old friend?" a deep voice asked. He-Jin turned to see Commander Rax. The massive drachnid warrior who had once threatened the station was now its head of security. His scales showed new patterns, marks of healing rather than battle. "Remembering how it all began," she replied. They'd walked together through the station's halls. In the emergency ward, human and drachnid medical teams worked side by side. The healing chants of drachnid traditions mixed with the hum of advanced medical equipment. "Look there," Rax said, pointing to a young drachnid healer treating a human child's broken arm. The warrior-turned-doctor was singing softly while using regenerative therapy. The child was smiling, not afraid at all of the large-scale being helping her. In another room, Dr. Lee Ji-hoo was teaching a class about new discoveries. By combining Drachnid healing songs with modern sound therapy, they had developed treatments that worked for many species. "We have changed," Rax said quietly. "Once, we were known only for war. Now, we protect the healers of every race." He was right. Drachnid battleships had become guardians of medical stations throughout the galaxy. Their fearsome reputation now served to keep hospitals and medical ships safe. Director Kim joined them, carrying a data tablet. "The latest reports are amazing," he said. "The number of cybernetic enhancements in Drachnid society has dropped by 80%. Natural healing is becoming their first choice." In the main ceremony hall, graduates from 20 different species gathered for the celebration. Humans, Drachnids, and others all wore the same white medical uniforms. They had learned to combine the best of all their healing traditions. He-Jin was asked to give a speech. As she looked at the crowd, she saw how much had changed. The most feared warriors in the galaxy sat next to doctors from worlds that once trembled at their approach. "5 years ago, 3 brave warriors trusted us with their injured friend," she began. "They showed us that the strongest warriors are those who are not afraid to seek healing. Today, we are all healers, all protectors of life." After the ceremony, He-Jin returned to her office. On her desk sat the original medical report from that first Drachnid patient. Next to it stood a small crystal trophy, a gift from the Drachnid High Command. It was shaped like their traditional healing symbol, a scaled hand holding a star. The inscription read, "To those who taught us that the greatest strength lies not in refusing help, but in healing together." Outside her window, a new group of medical ships prepared to leave the station. Each carried teams of human and Drachnid healers, ready to help anyone in need. The most feared species in the galaxy have found a new purpose, not in war, but in protecting the healing arts of all peoples.